It's a Thursday edition of Locked On Grizzlies. We finally have Grizzlies basketball to talk about again. But before we get to that, we have to discuss this concept of total Grizzlies basketball being unleashed. A great piece that I read yesterday that I want to talk to Damichael about, pick his brain, and also some practice news and notes from Damichael Cole. He was there on hand in Memphis yesterday to get the lowdown on Memphis heading into tonight's contest with Golden State. All that and more on this episode of Locked On Grizzlies. Let's lock in.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for joining us on this Thursday edition of the podcast. My name is Joe Mullinax. I'm joined by my co-host, Damichael Cole of the Commercial Appeal there in Memphis, Tennessee. He's the Memphis Grizzlies beat writer for that publication, does phenomenal work over at the CA. Make sure you're following him on X at Damichael C. Make sure you're following me if you want to get mad on social media at Joe Mullinax. Like, comment, rate, review, subscribe wherever you get podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube. It is all good. Make Damichael and I a part of your NBA and Memphis Grizzlies content consumption each and every time that an episode drops. Speaking of episodes, this one is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Speaking of things that are free, not just free and available wherever you get podcasts, as proud members of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team each and every single day, we now have a free daily newsletter. Updated numbers came out for that, Damichael. We're still holding strong. Number 7. There's 30 teams in the NBA, and we're number 7. Really cool. I appreciate that. Over 600 subscribers to our newsletter. It's free. You get it in your inbox each and every day, lockedondaily.com. Again, free daily newsletter. Go to lockedondaily.com. Subscribe to our Locked On Grizzlies newsletter. Not just Grizzlies content, NBA at large, fantasy basketball, so much more. Make sure you're checking out lockedondaily.com and subscribe to the free daily Locked On Grizzlies newsletter. Damichael Cole, I don't know. You're a busy guy, right? You're the Grizzlies beat writer. You're a man about town. You're moving and shaking. I have a chance to, peruse the internet, the interwebs, and look at various Grizzlies content. And I subscribe on Substack to something called the F5. I don't know if you're familiar with Owen Phillips and the F5 or not, but he wrote about in his latest edition, or the latest edition that I read, how unusual the Memphis Grizzlies were compared to the rest of the NBA. And he focused on their offense. The Grizzlies, compared to every other team in the NBA, over the last 10 years, are running one of the most unique offensive systems compared to the rest of the league that has happened in this last decade. The Grizzlies don't run nearly as much pick and roll or dribble handoff actions as the rest of the league does. So it's a copycat league in a lot of ways, but the Memphis Grizzlies zig where everybody else is zagging, especially in this way. And Owen goes on to write about how instead of spamming an endless series of pick and rolls, Memphis has their players moving around the court in sync with one another to stay as spaced out as possible. And again, this is from the F5 Substack. Highly recommend you check it out by Owen Phillips. And if you would like, you can certainly follow Owen on X. Want to make sure I get his handle right. Owen Phillips is at Owen LHJ Phillips. I knew it was long. That's why I wanted to make sure I read it. They are doing a phenomenal job in half-court efficiency. Memphis currently 5th in the league in that space. Damichael, I know you know this. Our everydayers probably know this. Saying that the Grizzlies are top 5 in half-court efficiency, that's wild, man. And they're doing it through this positionless scheme. Guys are free to attack, defend, and fill in, again, quoting from the F5, for someone else at any given time. The total football concept. The only reason I know what that is from Ted Lasso. Shout out to Ted Lasso. I'm a big Ted Lasso fan. They implement total football as part of their schemes. This is total basketball, right? And the Grizzlies are doing something that no one else in the league is doing. It comes obviously from the offensive coordinator change, which I know you can share a little bit more about. Owen is interested to see how this plays out in the playoffs. I'm interested to see if this can sustain the entire year. Because again, this is the best Grizzlies offense, dare I say, I have ever seen in the history of me covering the Memphis Grizzlies. Is this sustainable, though? I think that's a fair question.
Yeah, it's a fair question that we won't know the answer to at this point in time. But what I do know the answer to, and actually what I talked to Taylor Jenkins about yesterday, was the fact that teams are starting to adjust by doing things differently against the Grizzlies on the defensive end that they're doing against other teams. Taylor Jenkins talked a lot about on Wednesday after practice about sometimes how teams are now starting to kind of try to take away the back cuts for the Grizzlies because they, as you see with the Grizzlies offense, since it's less pick and roll based, because it's not ISO necessarily, but it's a lot of dribble drive. But those dribble drives are based off of a bunch of movement and movement patterns. Like the movements are built into the actions. And that's kind of the best way I think I can describe it, where they're not just moving out there where it's like, hey, just space the floor, everyone get out of the way. These are built-in movements within certain actions. So sometimes when I'm watching and I'm there at the Grizzlies game, I'm here and I'm right behind Taylor Jenkins. You'll hear Taylor Jenkins say next action, next action. When the first 15 seconds of the shot clock, things may look dead, and Taylor Jenkins will say, "Hey, next action," and then the Grizzlies will kind of start doing some of those movement patterns and whatnot, and they'll get into the next action. So it is a different offense. It's been beneficial to some players. I'm actually, just been writing about this a lot lately, like Jake LaRavia, Santi Aldama. Those are two guys that just come to mind immediately as guys that have said to me. And if you watch them play even before this season, you would think that something like this would fit their playing styles. Whereas there are some guys in the past who were really good out of pick and roll that have taken a little bit longer to adjust. Like Brandon Clark was very good as a rim runner, roller. He's still, now that Ja's back, he's getting some of those opportunities as a rim runner with Ja. But it's different for Brandon Clark because you got guys getting to those next actions by cutting right in front of him while he's at the basket, which takes away that spacing element in some ways, and makes his game so much easier and effective when he's running to the rim and there's a lot of space around him. So for him, I think another guy is Desmond Bane, who we'll talk about a little bit more in the second segment. But that's another guy it's an adjustment for him as well because he thrives so much out of pick and roll and having plays ran for him. We used to hear Dylan Brooks talk about it, and people didn't necessarily agree with it. But I remember when he was here, he used to talk about how having plays ran for him would help him get into a rhythm. They don't run plays anymore, really. Like it's very they occasionally do. I don't want anyone to think that the Grizzlies just go out there and they just just free will it. Like they run play every now and then, out of timeouts and things like that. But when they grab a rebound, there's no sets. They're running actions. That's the best way to put it, Joe. They're not running plays, but they're running actions. They get into certain areas of the court. Guys know where other guys are supposed to be, and they're playing off of that.
You mentioned talking about Desmond Bane more later in the show, and
Yeah.
I want to shout out. A couple days ago, I kind of blew up social media and made people really mad at me, but I had a really good interaction with someone who's been a really good follow for a really long time on X. His name is it's at Grizz Tiger Man, the amazing EMAZIN is his name, and I want to give him a shout out because we had a good interaction. Like he was mad at me, don't get me wrong, but he talked about in the conversation with Gigi and Bane struggling. He wants to see Bane continue to get run with that second unit, right? And that's where, the benching Bane and that sort of thing. He doesn't necessarily want Bane benched as much as he wants him to be that first guy that comes out and then the first guy that comes back in to play with the reserves to maybe help that process. And he'd be fine with putting Bane as a sixth man. But he's a little more, what's the word? A little bit more logical in conversations than other folks I interact with on social media. And he also talked about Desmond Bane. Maybe part of that adjustment is not having to be that downhill guy anymore because there's so many other guys coming downhill, right? Santiago, it may not be the same. They may not have the ball in their hands, but it's backdoor cuts, it's movements, it's actions off the ball. Bane doesn't have to be that guy that initiates that movement anymore. Maybe it allows for him to go back to being more of that catch and shoot guy that he was when he came into the league. And that would be an adjustment, and that would take time to kind of find his footing with. But maybe that's an answer. I thought that was really smart from him.
Yeah, the best thing about this offense is that it's free flowing. And in a way, that can be some of the worst parts. And, I want to save a lot of the juice for the second segment. I'm trying to save some of the juice.
I understand.
You're getting me to pour a little bit more out of the cup. But I'm trying to save some of it. But when you have a free-flowing offense, I'll just say this, and then we'll dive deeper into it in the second segment. But I'll say this. When you have a free-flowing offense, everyone eats, right? This day, and we've seen it. Some days Santi will have 20. Next day he'll have like 7 or 8 points. Some days Jake Moravia will have a big game. Sometimes it's Ja. Sometimes it's Jaren. Sometimes it's Jalen Wells. Like, the defense dictates things more for you. Whereas when you're running other types of offenses where you're running plays, you're running a play for Jaren Jackson Jr., Jaren's going to get the ball no matter what. Whereas in this system, it's like, okay, they're taking Jaren away. All right, no problem. We're going to this guy. So it's kind of like they're playing off of you more so than trying to dictate the action in those type of ways.
Again, shout out to the good folks over at the F5. Shout out to Owen Phillips, a really good follow, really good Substack. You know, I subscribe to all these different Substacks, trying to learn as much as I can about basketball. I'm told all the time how dumb I am. So I'm trying to learn and grow as a podcaster and blogger after all these years. So again, Owen Phillips, the F5, the post was called Home Court Conundrum. It's a part of his overall coverage of the league. Make sure you're checking it out. When we come back here on Locked On Grizzlies, I tried to get more out of Damichael in that first segment than I should have. Practice news and notes from a busy Wednesday there in Memphis heading in to tonight's Golden State contest. We'll talk about that next here on Locked On Grizzlies. Check it out. Make sure you stick with us. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by BILT Rewards in particular. If you're a renter, listen up. This is a total game changer. Thanks to BILT, you can now earn points on rent payments just like you do with groceries or travel. Paying rent now comes with serious perks, and it's completely free to join. Earn valuable BILT points on your rent and everyday spending at no extra cost. With over 500 airlines, 700,000 hotels in their program, possibilities are endless, and you can redeem these points for flights or hotel stays or even future rent payments, as well as unique experiences that are exclusive to BILT members. Start earning points on rent you're already paying by joining or going to joinbuilt.com/lockedonnba. That's joinbuilt.com/lockedonnba. Make sure to use our link so they know that we sent you. Don't wait. Start earning rewards today. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is also brought to you by Game Time. I love Game Time. I love live events during the holidays, concerts, shows, all sorts of different comedy things. I love hanging out with my wife when we're able. The kids aren't sick and we can go out and, just me and her enjoy our anniversaries later on this month. I'd love to make new memories with her this holiday season at a great show, and I know that I could do that with Game Time. Game Time Picks allows it to be easier for us to save more money on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and so much more. You can toggle on the all-in pricing like I do on a regular basis to see the total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. They also have a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy and a lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right, partner, I apologize. I killed the lead a little bit earlier. That's podcast malpractice. Desmond Bane, you posted a picture of him being the last guy getting shots up at practice. You mentioned talking to Taylor Jenkins. Lots of good bits coming out of that Wednesday session coming into tonight's game against the Warriors. What are some of your big takeaways? You were there on the ground, of course. You were in the gym. You were talking to folks. What are some of your news and notes from Wednesday's practice ahead of Grizzlies basketball finally returning tonight against the Warriors?
We got two big ones we'll talk about. I'm gonna let you dictate the direction we go in. Do you want the narrative stuff first, or you want the hoop stuff first? Which one do you want first? The narrative stuff or the hoop stuff? We're gonna do both. Let's
go with the hoop stuff. I feel like we were in a good groove there with total basketball and positionless movement and spacing. I think we're in a hoops mood today.
Let's keep it going there. Well, if we want to talk straight hoops, then we're going to talk about Desmond Bane, and this will be good news to a lot of the people who've been asking all these different questions about Desmond Bane. Desmond Bane's this, Desmond Bane that. The number one thing that stood out to me from practice is the Grizzlies realize the struggles that have been going on with Desmond Bane. No one's ignoring it anymore or anything like that. There is urgency behind getting Desmond Bane to basketball. That was the number one takeaway from practice for me. Talking to Ja Morant. He's the point guard, right? He's the guy that orchestrates the offense. He told me, he said, it is a point of emphasis to get Desmond Bane to basketball early, to get Desmond Bane going. We have to do a better job of that going forward. Talking to Taylor Jenkins, he said it. He said, I've had conversations with Desmond Bane. They're not running from it, Joe. They're not. I want you to know that they are not running from it. He said, I've had conversations with Desmond Bane. We have to do a better job of getting him the basketball and things like that. Now, the only problem within the offense, and we kind of touched on it a little bit in the first segment, this isn't an offense where it's easy to just, hey, okay, this guy's not in the flow. Let's draw 2 floppy sets up for him real quick and get him going. Let's draw. That's not how this Grizzlies offense is orchestrated. This offense is grab the rebound, get out and run. And, hey, he's open, throw him the ball. That guy's open, throw him the ball. But what you're hearing is even within that, they're trying to make sure Desmond Bane gets going early on in the game. So keep an eye on that as we go for the next couple games. You might see 2 guys open, and Desmond Bane's definitely going to be the guy to get the basketball because they're not necessarily saying they're going to draw plays for him, but they're going to make sure early on that he gets some opportunities. So I think the days of him getting 2 3-point looks, as we saw in that Lakers games, I don't think the Grizzlies are going to let that happen anymore.
Thank goodness, because that's nonsense, right? Like the argument of him being higher paid than Ja Morant is also nonsense, as we've covered recently. But he's one of your best players, right? And even if you want to say he's the 3rd option now behind Ja and Jaren, which maybe that might be true. But even if that is true, he's still a 20-point per game scorer.
He's a good 3rd option.
Potential. He's probably one of the best 3rd options in the NBA. He should be much more active in the scheme. For me, the scheme is obviously working, right? But you have to adjust scheme around your players. And I don't think anybody would sit here and say that Jake LaRavia and Santi Aldama and Jalen Wells are better than Desmond Bane. Yeah. So at some point, you have to find a system tweak.
Because you'll need Des more than those guys in the playoffs.
Right. Absolutely. Especially when things get a little bit more intense. You want Desmond Bane on that wall for you. So it's good to hear that they've prioritized that, and hopefully we can see that tonight against the Warriors. But you know how I love a good narrative partner. Let's hear the second part.
I know you do. I know you love that part of it. And so I think, the narrative part, and we'll talk some about it in the next segment too as we kind of preview the game. But Ja Morant, he more kind of just is downplaying the whole. I think Josh just tired of, in general, talking about the idea of having rivals and certain teams. In the words of Ja Morant, he doesn't like any team that's beaten the Grizzlies before, and that's pretty much every team. So he doesn't like any of them. He doesn't like. He said, I don't like Utah because they put us out. I don't like the Lakers because they put us out. I don't like the Warriors because they put us out. I don't like any of them. So. That's just who Ja Morant is. But of course, when he says he doesn't like certain teams, like you say you don't like the Lakers, everyone's like, oh, Ja said he didn't like the Lakers. We're breaking news. But like I see you just did the Kevin McAllister over there. So
that's right. Shout out to Home Alone. Great Christmas movie.
Yeah, I got to watch it soon. Got to put that on the list. Everyone should have it on the list for Christmas. But I digress. Now the other one is Zach Edey. And that is going to be a big part of the game, and we can talk more about the other stuff as we break down the Golden State game. But this whole idea of Dennis Schroeder being over there now, and people forget that Draymond Green essentially called Zach Edey soft, and asked Zach Edey about that a little bit, after practice. And man, look, I'm telling you, big fella ain't backing down from nothing. I mean. Look, Joe, it's like some Ivan Drago stuff when we ask him these type questions. I'm not even over exaggerating. Like when I have to ask him about other guys trying to, I guess, impose their will is the way to put it. Impose their will on him. He always just has this, I'm not worried about them. They're not going to do nothing to me. He said it when we were in Utah. He said something like, nobody messes with me. Like that's what he said, and I'm not going to argue with him. I mean, dude's 7'4", 290. And he barely laughs. Like I've been around Zach Edey, I haven't heard him laugh too much. Like he don't play that. But at the same time, we're just talking to him about Draymond Green, and he basically said, "Look, I know Draymond's going to try to play the mind games and things like that, but I'm not worried about it. I'm just going to play basketball. I'm just going to play my game." And then Joe, he said, "If he tries it," and then he paused. He paused, Joe. He was about to say something. He was about to say something that was going to be on SportsCenter or something. He said, if he tries it, and he paused and he said, I'm not worried about it. That's all he said. That's all he said. I'm really scared to find out what he was going to. Zach Edey, I'm telling you, he doesn't play that. So I don't know what he was gonna say,
I like it. I feel like,
and
this is a good lead into the final segment here in a moment. I feel like this is a night, because it's in Memphis, obviously, right? The contest. I feel like this could be a Zach Edey legend building night. I think the energy is there after hearing those quotes, reading your story in the commercial appeal, that there's an energy there that this could be the start of the Zach Edey legend, a little bit of a brouhaha with Mr. Draymond Green. It's going to be interesting. So again, make sure you're following Damichael at Damichael C. If you don't already do so. Grizzlies beat writer for the commercial appeal. Obviously, that's his day job, but he provides all the nuggets that he can with us here at Locked On Grizzlies as well. When we come back here, we're going to be talking about the Golden State game, previewing, finally, Grizzlies basketball is back. Make sure you're sticking around. We'll be right back. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch, maybe you think that the new Atlanta Falcons quarterback is going to do so much better than Kirk Cousins did. Or maybe you think Jaden Daniels is going to light up the Philadelphia Eagles. You just got a feeling in your gut. You can, in the middle of the game, check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the exact same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the National Football League. All right, Damichael, closing out today's episode. Again, basketball is back in Memphis. A chance for the Grizzlies to knock off a rival. Sorry, Ja. I know you don't like that reference. But the Warriors are a bit of a rival of the Grizzlies, and this will be a different-looking Golden State team than Memphis saw the last time they saw the Warriors. What are some things that you're looking for in this contest? Obviously, Bane and Edey, two major factors that we've already discussed. But what else are you keeping an eye out for as the Grizzlies resume play after the NBA Cup finally mercifully ended?
Get to the paint and dominate. This is a game that fits some of the bread and butter things that the Grizzlies like to do in the paint. For one, Golden State, and we'll see if they start the first game this way, but it seems like the idea is to start Dennis Schroeder and Steph Curry in the backcourt. Two guards, 6'3" and under. You got Desmond Bane, you got Jalen Wells, you got Ja Morant. Ja Morant is every bit of 6'2.5", but he doesn't play it. We all know that. He's one of the top paint scorers in the NBA. He's just going to jump over those dudes. So I don't even consider him the same height as them because he doesn't jump like them. Desmond Bane is more of the strength. Yeah, he's 6'6", but he has the shorter arms, but he's strong. Everyone says Desmond Bane is one of the strongest players pound for pound on the Grizzlies team. Jalen Wells. That's more, he hasn't built into the grown man strength all the way yet and things like that. But he's 6'7", he has long arms, and if you watch him shoot those turnaround jumpers, and he shoots the three-pointers sometimes, when he locks and loaded and he shoots the three over the top of defense, he can't see you. He can't even see the defense. So the point is that two of those guys will have to guard at least two of those Grizzlies players that I just mentioned. That should put those Grizzlies players in favorable positions to get to the rim. I'm not looking at Dennis Schroeder or Steph Curry as just dynamic ball stoppers. Like, Dennis Schroeder is a pesky defender. He's irritable. We saw the very first possession in that Nets Grizzlies game, last game. He ripped the ball from Ja. The Grizzlies kept possession, but he made Ja lose the ball, and one of Ja's teammates picked it up, and they continued the possession. So he's pesky and whatnot, but he's not a ball stopper. He's not like a great point of attack defender, in my opinion. So when you get past those guys, of course, I think Draymond Green is a great backline defender, but he's not doing it by blocking shots. He's just a great positional guy, and nothing else scares me. Like Jonathan Kuminga, great athlete. He can leap or whatever, but I'm not worried about him as a positional defender as much as a Draymond Green, Trace Jackson Davis, all those guys. The point that I'm making is there should be opportunities for the Grizzlies to get to their bread and butter, which is getting to the paint, scoring in the paint, getting to the paint, doing the kick out. I talked about it a little bit in the last episode. The Grizzlies offense, I can't emphasize this enough. It's not even just about scoring in the paint. It's about playing through the paint. That's how when you say what's next after the pace, when the pace isn't working, they want to get to the paint and they want to start their offense and build it through getting to the paint. In practices, I'm telling you, they run some of these scrimmages and stuff. If you come up the court, you make a shot and the ball doesn't touch the paint, doesn't count. It has to touch the paint. That's something Jake LaRavia has become really good at. Santi's really good at it. John Morant's really good at it. Some other guys are as well. But the point is, against Golden State, where they don't have premier shot blocking as a team, the opportunities will be there to take advantage of that. And I want to see if the Grizzlies can really capitalize. Because think about Golden State. They may not have the shot blockers, but they're a good positional defending team. So that's what it's going to come down to me, is can the Grizzlies impose their will in that area?
They execute their scheme really well. They deserve credit for that. That's their defensive scheme behind Draymond Green is really, really strong.
Yeah.
My biggest concern going into this game is perimeter defense, because I know you know this as a ball knower and a ball lover in terms of basketball. I'm pretty sure the Golden State Warriors were recently a part of an NBA record-setting game. It was them and the Dallas Mavericks, something along the lines of 45 made threes across.
It was wild.
Like that. The Golden State Warriors still have Steph Curry, right? And they still have other guys on that roster that are capable of going off from range at any given time. And I also, as a Grizzlies blogger, podcaster, fan, have PTSD because I feel like teams always have their best shooting nights, or maybe not always, but often have their best shooting nights against Memphis. Doesn't seem like that's likely for this contest because the Warriors recently had a pretty phenomenal game shooting the basketball, but they have the capacity to go off in that way. And Memphis has shown their defensive scheme is not necessarily always designed to limit those opportunities. They prioritize shutting down other things. They'll give up an open shot here or there, and the Warriors have guys that can knock them down. So that's what makes me the most nervous. Can they close out on shooters? Can they, again, position themselves, maybe be a pass ahead, deflections, try to disrupt the rhythm of the Warriors offense? The more that they can do that, especially in the half court, the more opportunity they're going to have to create turnovers, get out and run on their own right. They have to keep the Warriors from getting hot on the perimeter. Even if they make a couple of shots, they have to be aggressive and blitz those passing lanes, maybe even do some double teams off of pick and roll, just trying to get the ball out of guys' hands and not let them get into their rhythm shooting.
I love that point that you made, Joe. I love that point. And it's going to be a challenge, and it is the challenge for the Grizzlies in this game, perimeter defense, because of the fact, look at it like this. When they played Golden State, Steph Curry, Jalen Wells took that assignment. Now, when you're playing, the Nets recently against Dennis Schroeder, Jalen Wells took that assignment. He can't guard Curry and Schroeder. So now you're saying, hey, Desmond Bane, go get one of them. It's probably going to be Schroeder would be my guess. But when they played them, Desmond Bane was guarding Cam Johnson and Jalen Wells was getting Schroeder. So it's going to challenge those perimeter guys. Or maybe it's Ja. We saw Ja do solid, right, against Kyrie Irving and De'Aaron Fox. And if you can hold your own against those dudes, then, all due respect to Dennis Schroeder, but that's chump change compared to what De'Aaron Fox and Kyrie Irving bring to the table. So maybe he's the guy that draws that assignment. But whoever it is going to be a challenge. And like I said, all due respect to Dennis Schroeder, he's capable of going off. Steph Curry's capable of going off. You can't put too much attention on Dennis Schroeder because of the fact that Steph Curry is going to be off the ball a little bit more. Eyes are going to be on him, watching what he does. Jonathan Kuminga, since joining the starting lineup, has been very dynamic for the Warriors as well. His rim running ability, just his overall athleticism is going to be a challenge. I'm looking forward to this game. I still think the Grizzlies have built-in advantages. The Warriors have kind of fallen off a little bit since they had that great early start. And there are some ways to expose them. They have a lot of depth, just like Memphis. They don't have a lot of elite level players type depth. They just have a lot of solid players. And some people will make the same argument for the Grizzlies, just a lot of solid guys, whatever the case may be. But it's going to be important. Like Joe, that perimeter defense you just mentioned, Marcus Smart is doubtful. I don't know if we've touched on that.
Right, we haven't. I was just about to. Yeah, Smart likely to not play.
So you will need Jalen Wells. You will need Scottie Pippen Jr. You will need Desmond Bane. All those guys have to say, we're gonna get in that stance and we're gonna guard our butts off to get this win.
Feels like a big night for Jake LaRavia too, right? Like the question as we get into trade season, the trigger figure on the armchair GM is getting itchy here, partner. If we think that we're just going to ride with the depth, I think I can go with that move. But
I don't know about armchair GM. He ain't rocking with that.
I know. I'm looking around the league. There's rumors of Zion Williamson being available. That's real discipline right there. Not saying it makes sense. Not saying it makes sense. I'm not saying that I would do it. I'm saying, again, as an armchair GM, you just want to log into the trade machine and see what you can do. Let the thing spin. But it's going to be a great game tonight. I know Damichael's going to be there in the forum, checking it out live and in person. Make sure you're following him again at Damichael C for great coverage of the game. And I will have you on our Friday edition of Locked On Grizzlies. Damichael, I'm sure, with the Golden State Warriors in town, lots to write for the Commercial Appeal. So I'll happily take us into the weekend, talk about Grizzlies Warriors, look ahead to what's coming up for Memphis in the coming days, and maybe put a little bit of a holiday twist on some things to close out the show. So I'm looking forward to our Friday episode, and I hope you guys will join me for that, talking Grizzlies, Warriors, and so much more. Thank you so much to Damichael, as always, for joining me as my co-host. Did a great job this week. I hope he has a great weekend. We still have a show to do, you and I, dear listener, dear viewer, on Friday. Make sure you're liking, commenting, rating, reviewing, subscribing, wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube. Remember, we have a free daily newsletter now, lockedondaily.com. Make sure you're subscribing. Thanks to everybody that has already done that. Bring Locked On Grizzlies to your inbox and make us a part of your NBA and Memphis Grizzlies content consumption each and every time that an episode and a newsletter drops. For Damichael, I'm Joe. Enjoy the game. Finally, Grizzlies basketball is back. Take that, NBA Cup. We have Grizzlies basketball back in the fold. I'm excited. You should be too. Catch you next time.